We are those known to you as the principle of QO, and we greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator in whose service we come to your people and to your circle of seeking this day. We thank each for the setting aside of the time and the energy and the care to seek the truth, and we are glad to share our opinions concerning the question of the one known as B, concerning how to live a more radiant and service-oriented life, with the simple request that each of our thoughts be taken as an opinion rather than a fact, and be subjected to the indifferent scrutiny of that part of the self, which is the discriminator. Allow that energy within that knows what is and what is not helpful to make its feelings known, and when there is resonance, then we are pleased to have been a resource. If there is not resonance, we are simply pleased to have you forget that which was said. For there is always truth in the surroundings of every moment for those who have the eyes to see, the ears to hear, and the hearts to understand. With this caveat, we are able to be comfortably on the proper side of the distortion towards preserving free will amongst all, of being a stumbling block for none. The one known as B, as well as the one known as Carla, and the one known as Jim, and in general those entities on your planet which are enjoying third density at this time, indeed do have a tendency to get in their own way, as if there were part of the self that enjoyed blocking the natural light that streams into the body complex, most visibly from sunlight, but, in an energetic sense, moves into the body at all time. Both the physical and non-physical vehicles flow light through in infinitely great amounts, potentially. The energy body is as the electricity, having the capacity for both a large amount of energy carried and a large intensity or resistance of energy carried. Thus, the crystal within you can both be strengthened in terms of more power, and can amplify its power by focusing, crystallizing, and mythologizing the energy that moves through it, and the crystal that bears it and shares it. The higher the desire, the more opportunity or capacity for bringing more light through, the more focused the will upon the dance of creative living, the more intense and penetrating shall be the nature of that widened channel for light. The ability of one entity to be a channel for light is infinite. An unflawed crystal could heal a planet. The secret to doing work in the sense of magnetizing the fourth density grid, or, in a more mythological sense, helping to birth Gaia's fourth density self, is a helpful way to encourage and align the self with the emotional point of view, which will help create a broader and a more intense and pure flow of the Creator's infinite love and light into the planetary grid. We may say in another way, into the hearts of all those that lie within the tidal waves that emanate from your being. It is said in the holy work known as the New Testament of the Bible that it is not good to hide one's light under a covering, but rather it is good to stand it upon a hill where it can be seen, letting it bear witness to the light. The tendency of this instrument, of the one known as B, of the one known as Jim, and of most of the entities upon the earth, is to stand in one's own light. The truth is that each entity is precisely that which the one known as B asked how to become. Each is as the master, the knight in shining armor, the hero or the heroine. Each faces the ordeal of life, the ordeal of personal relationships, the ordeal of creating a living, the ordeal of true communication, and the ordeal of facing the self, in the sense of doing work in the disciplining of the personality. The answer to the question which you asked lives within you already. Purpose, already perfect, worthy co-creator, part of what this instrument's teacher calls the Godhead principle. You are part of the principle of planet Earth. For the most part, this social memory complex has not been activated, because the fourth density mass mind has only taken its first tentative steps. Each who is master during this hour plants the seeds of a harvest that will feed those who are able to build upon the work done by this special group of those who come to aid in the harvest. Certainly, as the one known as Brother Philip has said, the crown of co-creatorship weighs heavy upon the head, and yet you shall wear it, and you shall serve under it. If each is a master, what is keeping each from the self-realization of mastership? This instrument has been used to calling it world opinion. All that is within the consensus reality is world opinion. In no case does it reflect reality. That which reflects beyond the illusion is the consciousness within, and it is, as all potential things, caged until the reaping hand unlocks the door. In this instrument's hymnal, there is a poem which she is used to singing, which has the image of the entity known as Jesus the Christ standing outside the door of one's heart. knocking ever so gently and asking to come in. Doubt, fear, and that kind of contracting emotion deafen the ear of faith and blind the eye of knowing. They stop the mouth of hope and make one's armor permeable. It is acceptable in the extreme to be doubtful, to, as this instrument would say, err and stray from the ways, one of the infinite Creator. Yet the attempt to move gently back into the balanced and centered state of mind, which is the open heart ever and always creates a new experience, or the potential for the brand new moment. This entity is aware enough of the psychological benefit of starting again that it will, tomorrow afternoon, confess its sins, slight though they may be, to that priest which is assigned to her parish. This entity does not believe in sin, only in making mistakes, yet still this entity feels lighter when it is completely empty of unconfessed shadows, and forgiven for each and every error. Then there is a new heaven and a new earth, infinity of new possibilities and new beginnings. This is true at the moment, and it does not take a priest unless an entity is fond of rituals and finds it helpful to seek such a practice as this instrument has. The roles of this confession and forgiveness can both be taken by the self. One stands in one's own light because one is under the impression that it is the proper thing to do. Many times it does not even feel incorrect or wrong to express fear in some way, because it seems practical and thoughtful and responsible to be concerned. However, it is well, when the possibility of doing so arises, to take the opportunity to recount one's errors to one's priest or itself, and to be shriven with a truly compassionate heart. The addition of the outer priest creates the illusion that there is a creator moving through the intermediary of priesthood and touching the lowly penitent. The truth is that the instrument creates or projects the priest from the self by fear, contracting against the idea of meeting the creator directly. This is that which the instrument is aware of and accepts as a part of her earthly personality shell, until such time as this practice no longer offers her comfort or a resource in pursuing her desires. However, for those who are of a more solitary nature, it is well to invoke the priest within yourself, and we would suggest that you create this portion of the self as feminine, nurturing, and loving, a part of the self that truly loves with the full and flowing heart, that sees the soul amidst the grime of an entity's inevitable errors. As this instrument pointed out in the conversation before this meditation, errors are not only necessary but adventurous. They are necessary because the nature of learning is trial and error, trial and error. Each time the information of that attempt creates new knowledge. Eventually, an entity increases its knowledge enough to reach its goal, by which time it is involved in a further quest. So the cycle is a spiral which will predictably address the life's issues of an incarnational level on a cyclical basis. Each time that the theme recurs, the motif is offered in a new instrumentalization, and there are nuances to be learned each time. There is no reason to be discouraged, because the entity sees itself slipping into numbness or overactivity. This is another way of making an error and represents that which offers the possibility of learning. Thusly, if it can be seen as adventures in failure, and if it can be seen that each failure inevitably leads to the attainment of goals that are deep within the desires of the soul stream of the entity, then it becomes easier to have compassion upon the self within its dream of personality and preference. The heart is the seat of, and the portal to the truth of the self. The emotions are the fruit of great refinement through the turmoil and difficulties of turning catalyst into experience, and the potential into the actual. It is a short lifetime in which to do such a thing. It is an adventure too great for skin and bones to hold it. The imagination of the entity within the human breast is stellar, star-like, infinite, eternal, and several magnitudes larger than life. Yet it glows within as if in a cave until the door is unlocked into the heart, and the self enters fully into the tabernacle of the one infinite Creator. Moving into the silence is like unlocking that door. Even stopping thinking is like picking the lock. The return to center is a journey from fear to love. When the sun is shining and the pocket is plump with money, and the heart and the arm are full of love for a pretty girl or a handsome gentleman, when the breeze is fresh with the smell of spring flowers, such a state of mind as this instrument would describe as centered and joyful is easy to achieve. Yet it is as though the entity played upon the surface of the waves, enjoying the sunlight and basking in the graceful, ceaseless swells of the softly lapping waves. When the storms and extreme tides and waves of inclement weather stir the sea's surface into spume and spray and destruction, the self must needs remove its body from the deeps and become a land creature again, seeking shelter from that which is too turbulent to enjoy. Blessed is that swimmer with the equipment to dive deep, deep under the storm, to the still, crystalline water that is under great pressure and moves only languidly, even with the wildest storm upon the surface. This circle was speaking of points of view, and the feeling and emotion and point of view of resting in the deep of the ocean and the stillness of the ever-moving sea is a helpful way to create a kind of icon on the desktop of being centered, so that you may click on that image and other images that you find instinctually to create a sense of expansion, stillness, and peace. The every effort which is produced with the intention of opening the self to the one infinite Creator, of radiating more of the Creator's light and serving more and more as an agent of light, is in itself the heart of the process of achieving the desired goal. Shall you achieve it perfectly within this lifetime? We would not wish to deny the possibility, though we may that it is a possibility-probability vortex rather than a truth. The energy to walk a path and to live a sacred life is as the energy of the deep ocean water, with little movement but great force. The peaceful soul is a soul resting in love. It has no waves to buffet it because it is protected by its position, just as the heart is protected within a heavy and very strong cage of rib and spine. The precious interior of the body is well protected, and the precious heart of the energy body is similarly loved. To allow oneself to feel the joy and the passion and the brio of one's being is to dare great things. To do so with gentility and honor, with grace and with style, is to shine up the armor of life. Rather than shrinking from pain of any kind, we do not say to dwell upon it, but rather to see it as a helpful friend, a sister or brother. You do not know why this friend is helpful. It may seem to be very, very unhelpful. However, the blasting of sand against rock creates the removal of grime and grit, and the reappearance of the stone in all of its crystalline beauty, and so is the soul blasted to remove the grime of living and learning and failing. The storms come, and to all eyes which look upon the surface, the boat is crashed upon the rocks, the body is thrown into the turbulent and boiling waters, the life is extinguished. Those who are in the open heart simply dive with remembrance, with faith, and with joy, deep, deep into the waters that separate the mind from the heart, the storm from the stillness, the illusion from the truth. We would at this time transfer the contact to the one known as Jim. We thank this instrument for its service. We leave this instrument in the love and the light and transfer to the one known as Jim. We are those of QO.